Welcome to Empath Revolution, where sensitive souls are gathering to activate their cosmic mission and embrace their role in helping humanity ascend to the next level of consciousness. I'm your host, Stephanie Redfeather, author of the award-winning international best-selling book, The Evolutionary Empath and Empath Activation Cards. And in this interview, my special guest is Kaylin Castell. Kaylin is the co-founder of Venus Alchemy, My Star Alchemy, and the former Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. In addition to writing monthly celestial timings for over 28 years, holy cow, she enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings and teachings, both online and in-person events, changing lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. I have benefited so much from Kaylin's wisdom over the years. Today, she is going to talk to us about the power of standing for yourself. Welcome, Kaylin.
Thank you, Stephanie. I love that we're doing this together. This is so fun.
It is. It is. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about collaborating for a long time, so I am glad that this is finally manifesting for us. And so Kaylin has an amazing practice that she does every day, a daily invocation that is so powerful. And so I've asked her, and she's volunteered to start our session off with this invocation. And so this is not just an invocation to set the space for our time together in the interview. So for those of you who are listening and watching, I'd like for you to actively participate, listening to her words, saying, oh, I like that. I want to pull this piece out. I want to incorporate that. Or maybe consider, if you don't already have some kind of daily invocation practice or centering or grounding type of practice, to create that for yourself. And so, Kaylin, I turn it over to you.
Oh, yay. Thank you. So I'm going to start out by inviting the directions, and of course, from an astrological or earth and sky perspective, as what we're going to do. And then we'll go into the invocations that Stephanie was talking about. So just being present, breathing, putting your hand on your belt, whatever helps you just be very present in your body as this is coming through. And also to say that the way that this invocation to the directions, or inviting the directions, begins is in the north, which is different than a lot of traditions start in the east. And when I was doing the rites of the moon Key about 5 years ago, they started in the south, and I was like, the south? That's weird. But then I thought about it, and I was like, wait, these traditions started in the southern hemisphere, and their south is our north. So we have our North Star, they have their southern cross that is their directive point. So of course they start in the south. And so then that really inspired me and gave me even greater permission to start in the north. So that's really what inspired this. So we're going to look at it from the perspective of elements, seasons, and other factors. So allowing for a breath to bring ourselves present. If you would like to face the direction, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, just know it's the opposite season from what I'm speaking into, and the opposite direction as well. So here we go. Thank you to the energy of the north, the element of earth, the place of the midnight sun, the new moon, the winter solstice, and the beginning of a new galactic, solar, and lunar cycle where the seeds of love are planted now and for the future. Thank you to the grandmothers and grandfathers, the ancient ones and the elders and wise ones, and all the wise medicine beings for your guiding wisdom that benefits us now and the many future generations. Thank you to the energy of the East, the element of fire, the place of the rising sun, the first quarter moon, the spring equinox, the balance of day and night, the place of decisive, inspired, and committed action to further a worthy cause, fueling our life purpose and noble mission so we take the necessary action that creates our desired reality. Thank you to the energy of the South, the element of water, the place of the midday sun, the full moon, the summer solstice, where the seeds planted at the winter solstice are now bearing fruit, nourished by the life-giving waters that have helped these seeds to flourish. Thank you to the deep feeling realm where we heal the wounds of trauma and connect with our nurturing, loving, authentic selves. Thank you to the energy of the West, the element of air, the place of the setting sun, the last quarter moon, the autumnal equinox, the balance of light and dark, day and night, and for the gift of imagination, our most important and precious co-creative tool as we dream a new earth reality that is loving, magical, and fun. Thank you to the ancient, present, and future keepers of the as above, so below, as within, so without center point, the bridge where we connect with great mystery and great spirit, and are reminded that what we experience in our outer reality is a reflection of what is within us. And when we change what is within us, the world around us changes. Thank you to all the directions for the reflections of wisdom you bring to us and how we connect with the signs, planets, and stars, the seasons, the moon phases, and the sun as it rises and sets on the dream of a new life we are co-creating with great mystery. Remembering we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. It is a living relationship we honor and celebrate within the great divine design unfolding before us. Remembering our essential place is no more or less important than anyone else's. Thank you for all the ways we are loved, guided, and protected in this sacred ceremonial space. Blessed be. So now just if you have your hand on your belly or you're attuning and bringing yourself again present and imagining that your body is being filled with the violet flame. And so this first one that I'm going to share with you is the one, a daily one that I do for love, guidance, support, and protection. And allowing for a breath to come into that place of gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all the 100% benevolent guardian angels, beings of light, master teachers, guides, ascended masters, helping spirits, power animals, and ancestors, for all the love, guidance, support, and protection within and around me, within and around each of us, in every moment of every day, within and around my home, my community, our planet, our solar system, our galaxy, our universe, and multiverse across all the dimensions of time and space. And now, further activating the violet flame, we say, thank you, Saint Germain, for the transmuting, transforming power of the violet flame, embracing and accepting all my hurt and pain, guilt and shame, fear and blame, whine and complain, defend and explain, self-doubt, self-judgment, self-criticism, doubt, judgment, and criticism of others, all lower vibrational energies, anything less than love, now being alchemically transformed into the higher vibrational energies of love. So I am vibrating as a superconductor of love. With gratitude for this high vibrational field of energy all around me, I know all lower vibrational energies coming my way are immediately transmuted and transformed into these higher vibrational energies, adding to the power of love of my personal consciousness grid. And these loving energies I'm vibrating with are infusing the energetic collective consciousness grid of the planet for the benefit of all life everywhere. It is done, it is so, and so it is. And we can complete with saying, I am an embodied superconductor of love.
I am an embodied superconductor of love.
Yay!
Oh, so before we introduce any more words, I just want to invite everybody who is watching and listening to just feel the space, I felt such a change in my personal energy field, in the field of, the collective, all of us together, as though we were in the very same room together. I could feel that shift. And so when we talk about creating an invocation, a morning practice, an evening practice, whenever it works, but morning is especially good because it sets the tone for your day. This is a real thing that's being enacted, a real thing that is being affected. And so, Kaylin, tell me your experience of the importance of starting with an intentional practice in the morning.
It changed my life, just saying, and that I created these based on some other things that I knew. Working with the violet flame, some people may remember there's a violet flame books that have been written. There's a whole bunch of stuff about Saint Germain and the violet flame. There was one that I did many years ago. I think I was in my late 20s, early 30s when my life was going through a big change. And so I just was constantly saying, I'm a being of violet fire. I'm the purity God desires. And I would chant that over and over and over again because it was the only thing that would help me realize that maybe I wasn't being punished by some bigger force that was because I'd messed up somehow, because my whole life was just burning to the ground at that time. And so then I actually updated that because I like to do those things, to say, I'm a being of violet fire. I'm the love the light inspires. Which is where, because it's all about the love. So, so that was something I did for many years, and then I just started adding to that, and it has just helped be a touchstone or a grounding force for me, because sometimes we can experience life as being all over the place and challenging, and things are dying and we don't want them to, or we're trying to hang on to something that we need to let go of, and that kind of thing. But a few years ago, I had an experience where I had to let go of something, and we're going to talk about probably this a little bit more, but I was standing up for myself, and I realized that I was afraid that the person I was standing up to was going to send, maybe not consciously, but really unhappy, mad energy my way. And I was like, oh, I think I need to create a protective field so that as that energy comes towards me, it gets uplifted into the vibration of love. So I'm not going to be impacted by the lower vibrational energy. I'm not sending it back, because I also learned those practices where you send back the negative energy back to the person who sent it. That doesn't help. And so I wanted to uplift that energy into the power of love as it came towards me, so that I'm putting that out into the greater collective consciousness field. And it just has helped so much. And I haven't been worried. I haven't had like bad dreams like I might have had in the past about it. It really just made such a difference in and feeling okay about the fact that I stood up for myself, and that my life got better as a result of having stood up and said, no, you can't treat me this way. You can't say those things to me. That is not okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kaylin, I know you've shared how boundaries kind of eluded you for quite a few decades, and you came to this, being able to say no, advocate for yourself, stand for yourself a little later in life. And I know there's so many people out there that can identify with that very same thing, right? Being an unconscious empath for many, many years, and then finally finding your way into your power. So, I know you've got a lot of different stories you can pluck out from your life, but just, pick one that comes to you in the moment and share with us.
So I'll just say, when I got introduced to astrology and started understanding my chart, I'm a Pisces sun. I have Venus in Aries. So it was easy for me to stand for everybody but myself. And I also started to recognize that the Pisces energy, it's like, that's empath energy. If people have that, they're probably an empath. If they're not feeling like they're an empath, it's probably because they shut it down hard and they had to survive. And that can happen too. But but when I realized that, and that I had this signature of being an empath, I was like, oh, I started to understand that for the first part of my life, I never even really knew what my feelings were or what I wanted. I was like feeling what everybody else wanted and what everybody else's feelings were. And I didn't even know it. I wasn't even aware of that. And so that helped to start give me permission to go, wait a second, I can have a sense of my own self. I don't have to like, and the other thing I developed was a habit of making it okay for everybody. So it would be okay for me. I know that's a common one. But when I realized that, I was like, oh, wait a second.
Right.
How am I leaving myself out of this equation constantly?
Mhm.
So, and I went through my first two marriages trying to make it okay for them, and it didn't work. It didn't even work. And then when I finally came to the realization, got more conscious about what I had been doing and leaving myself out of it, I was like, oh, this is something for me to be aware of. But even with that, it still took me time to like when you have those kind of habits,
Yeah.
yeah. And doing practices has really helped. Being more aware, doing ceremony, taking time to release and shed, and doing those kinds of ceremonies that allow us to do that. Doing breath work, doing whatever it is that helps us to uh, get to the deeper feelings and start to release that and so on. It still takes time, and I. I mean, really stood up for myself for the first time when I was 64. I'm now 68. So, I mean, talking about it being taking time, it just takes the time it takes.
Right.
And so, so first of all, I think we need to be really gentle with ourselves, forgive ourselves, not be harsh on ourselves for not getting it sooner. Like, really, how did it take me this long to get here? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I completely agree with that because, it's easy once right? Once you have an awareness of something, or once you've gotten to the other side of a thing, it's easy to look back and go, ugh, it was so obvious, but you have to understand in the moment, it's not obvious. It's not clear. So, so I know that you've talked about how it's been easy for you to be an advocate for everybody else except yourself. I have experienced that similarly. I know that there's a lot of people out there that, that they're all going, like I can tell the heads are nodding. So talk about that, like what was an experience of finally advocating for yourself, and how did that, like, what had to be present inside of you to finally do that, and how did that change things for you?
Interesting question and an interesting answer too. So, one of the things about being Venus and Aries, and so from the perspective of astrology that I work with, and I know you're familiar with, Stephanie, is that the Venus position represents the expression of the feminine you're here to bring forth in this life, to learn about, to investigate, to also help evolve. And so Aries, as the fierce warrior woman, wild warrior woman, who is restoring cosmic justice and here to create, help put the balance back in, and will defend and protect her children, people in her community, everybody, again, but sometimes not herself. So as I was becoming aware of that, and I was in a cycle that was really testing my Venus. It was an astrological cycle. It was really testing my Venus. And I found myself getting into a situation where I was standing up for someone else, that it wasn't being fair the way they were being treated, and I didn't think it was okay, and I was standing up for it, which got me in trouble. So I was like, and then the energy was all directed towards me, and I was the one who was wrong and bad and doing terrible things and being called names and all of that. And I was like, oh, and I was kind of going with it, and then I went, wait a second, I need to stand up for me and say that this is not okay. And so it, and I went, oh, and wait, I'm in a Pluto cycle and I need to, this is about becoming empowered. This is what I need to do to become empowered. And I just need to let this go and say, this is not okay. And now I'm going to walk away from this kind of treatment. I'm just not going to take it anymore. And even though it meant the end of something I'd been doing for a long time, I was like, I just have to let it go. And once I came to that realization, it was easier to let it go and to go, oh, this is what I need to do. These are the steps I need to take to empower myself. And I had to let go of some things that were really important to me that I was kind of hanging on to. But when I had that realization, I was like, something else will come and take its place. I can't be attached to this. I have to let it go. And so I did. And sure enough, a lot of other great things have come in to take its place. But but you have to trust that because you don't know that for sure in the
Yes.
beginning. Like, oh, if you're in an abusive relationship and you recognize that you need to leave that relationship, but it's hard. It's not easy because you have a lot of years invested in that. And that was essentially what was happening. And but again, standing up for someone else helped me to realize that I wasn't standing up for myself, that I had never really done that. I'd never really stood up for me. And uh I will take that back. I did that in my first marriage when I ended my first marriage because my husband was having an affair, and I was like, okay. And we had three small children, and I was absolutely terrified. I was also in a Pluto cycle then too. I was absolutely terrified because I'd been a stay-at-home mom, and how am I going to support and do all this? I didn't even know how that was going to happen. And so I was in that place of absolute terror, but it all worked out, and my life got better as a result because I said no to an abusive situation.
Yeah. Well, and I, yeah, what I want to say is as empaths, it can be challenging to try to figure out how the steps to take to make change or to change our behavior. But one of the things that I think can really work in our favor if we are a person who it's easy to advocate for everybody else and not ourselves is we have a felt sense, we have a felt experience of what it's like to stand up, right? To advocate. And so it's just a matter of instead of saying those things about someone else, can you go, oh, let me say those things about myself. So there's a linkage, there's a bridge there. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that that situation that happened to me, I was in my early 30s, three small children, that whole thing. I wasn't even aware that I was standing up for myself. I can look back now and see that I did that, but I wasn't even aware of it. I I just couldn't take what was going on anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah. But then I realized I can look back to that now and go, oh, that's what that felt like. And I can look back to the more recent situation and go, oh, that's what that felt like. And I'm not going to allow myself to be run over, at least as long as I'm aware that I'm being run over in a situation or not being treated in a good way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I am definitely a recovering people pleaser. And, I am sure, everybody who's a recovering people pleaser, raise your hand, because
Exactly.
it
And
is,
I think, that as we're growing up, it's a survival tactic. And we're not conscious that we're doing that necessarily, but it becomes a survival tactic we carry into our adult life. And it takes the time it takes for us to become aware of that and start to say, you know what, I don't need to do that for myself anymore. I could say no to people being abusive towards me, and and then trust you. It's like developing the trust that you're gonna somehow be okay on the other side of that.
yes. Yeah. The trust is a huge piece. And that's something, for empaths, it's so easy for us to feel everybody else's stuff and lose track of our own sense of self so that like the idea of coming home to ourselves and standing up for this, it can feel so foreign because we're so used to like being outwardly oriented to make sure everybody else is okay, or uh it could be born out of trying to get our needs met, right? Let's appease those who are in a position of authority, right? Our parents or teachers or whatever, to get what we want. So, I mean, I imagine you've had all those experiences.
And I wonder too, and you might know more of the statistics on this, Stephanie, but How many empathic people are raised by narcissistic parents or a narcissistic parent?
Yeah,
They're
that would be an
just
interesting number to look at.
I know that was true for me, and I think I've met a few other people that it's been true for them as well. And so you walk on eggshells, you are trying to make sure they're not angry and yelling at you and telling you how horrible and awful you are. And then you carry that into your adult life, and you do the same thing with partners and with people you work for, or family members, or people that your family or friends, supposed friends, maybe that kind of thing. It's like you just keep doing that and not necessarily recognizing that you're doing that. Uh, and if you've been told that you're basically unworthy, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you shouldn't have been born, you ruined my life, or whatever the things are that we get told. And so then we carry that, and then we're trying to make it like prove to the universe that we deserve to be here,
Yeah, yeah,
which is what I definitely did that a lot of my life. Like I'm trying to be the good person. I'm trying to make it okay for everybody. I'm trying to prove that it's okay for me to be here.
yeah. That is, I'm so glad that those specific words came out of your mouth. That's really important for people to hear. And I was similar, it's a pattern I still have to watch for. It has certainly made me very productive and very efficient and, very ambitious. But when you don't fully understand the source of those behaviors and those decisions, it runs you instead of you running it.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about, outside in rather than inside out. And how do we shift to come from the inside out rather than outside in, like everything we're trying to keep it all okay out here, but
Right.
it's not necessarily okay in here. And I just thought of something that actually pertains to what we're talking about is a couple of nights ago, I woke up in a panic, and this is something that can happen to me, like for no reason. I don't understand. I can't remember a dream. It's nothing like anything but just in that place of, okay, heart racing, feeling anxious, all of that. And it doesn't happen as much anymore, but it used to happen a lot because my life was a mess. Of course. But now it doesn't happen. So it kind of surprised me. And I was like, what do I need to feel into with this? How do I just be with this? Because my tendency is to want to like somehow think about something else or do something else or create a different experience so I don't have to feel how anxious and distraught I am in this moment. And so I just was with it. And as I was with it, I was recognizing that it was that unworthiness that was coming up. Like somehow I might make a mistake and then I'm going to get punished for it, or things are going to go badly because I make a mistake, not intending to make a mistake, but whatever that's about. And then I'm not worthy. And I was like, wow, I still have that lingering in my body. And then I had this image of like I burned this pot of soup some years ago, accidentally burned it, like crusty, like the middle part of it was somewhat okay, but I had to scrape the burnt part off, and it took me several rounds of scraping it off and soaking it and scraping it some more, and like I just had to keep going back to it. And I was also, that pot has never been, it's like stained now with that burnt color on it. So it's like never going to be completely back to whatever it was originally because it has that. But I was like, oh, I'm still scraping away some of the things that and it's still somewhat in my body, though I have gotten most of it out. Most of it is gone, but there's still just a little bit lingering that I'm getting to attend to. And so it's a practice. It can take a while. It maybe takes a whole lifetime. I don't think we ever necessarily get past it altogether. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I totally agree. All of these important, we'll call them life lessons, just for want of a better term, but, learning to stand in your power, right? Learning to say no, to advocate for yourself, to ask for what you want, all of these different things. These are practices, just like you said, that take time. It is a journey and not a destination. And so, I just for anybody that this is helpful to hear, that, reassurance is so important, that there's nothing wrong with you. I'd like to share just a quick thing that I share with almost every student or client that I work with about, when my spiritual awakening first began, something would come around for me to deal with, and I'm like, well, God damn it, I dealt with this 20 years ago, or son of a, why is this up again? 8 years ago, I dealt with this already. And I'd really beat myself up because, and I'd make myself wrong. Like, well, clearly, I guess I didn't get it right the first time, because here it is again. But that's two-dimensional thinking, right? If you just have a circle in 2 dimensions, right, you put a point on that circle and it feels like, well, I'm just going in a big circle, and there's that thing again, there's that thing again. But if you take a circle and spread it out into 3 dimensions, now you have a spiral. And so every time you come around to that thing, it's not the same level, right? You're the next level deeper. And so you're there not because you didn't get it right the first time, but because you did get it right the first time.
I love that. And I just want to bring in a cosmic perspective around that, is that our whole entire galaxy, and I don't know, maybe universe, but definitely our galaxy is spiraling through space. And so every time we come back to a birthday or solar return, we're not in the same place. Just like what you were saying, we're not in the same place. The whole galaxy has moved millions of miles since the last birthday, but it's spiraling through space. And so that just tells us that that kind of an analogy is something for us to be attuned to and recognize and realize that there is such a deep truth to the fact that it's on a spiral. It's not on a two-dimensional circle.
Yes, yeah, thank you for bringing that in. And the idea of this whole summit is activating our cosmic mission as empaths, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we're all gonna like write a bestseller, or be create a nonprofit organization, or be some sort of big public figure. Sometimes it just means being who you are, where you are, that nothing changes, except you are now a conscious, aware model for your family and the people in your lives. But that cosmic, that spiral, that fact that we're never at the same place, even though we think we are, that is such an important message.
Yeah. I love this so much, and that the idea, so many people, and I mean I do sessions for people all the time, and they're like, I know I have something really big to do in the world. I wonder what it is. And I'm like, sometimes the really big thing you have to do in the world is be who you are. And we have no idea the power and impact that can have, and the ripple effect that can have.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned, the superconductor of love, I was really introduced to that when I was in college, this idea of superconductive field. And in a superconductive field, no lower vibrational energy. It's a super coherent field. Nothing less than that super coherent field can penetrate that field. It can go around it, but it can never go into it. And or it can get uplifted into it. And that's just why the invocation that I shared is about being a superconductor. And we're taking and transmuting all those lower vibrational energies into the higher vibrational energies. And if there were enough of us that did it, the whole earth would become a superconductive field of love.
Oh,
So it's like as we can do that within ourselves, that is the impact we have. And we can do fun things like summits and write books and, make a big impact, or seemingly what we consider a big impact in those ways. But if we're not coming from a place of love, then that impact is going to be somewhat limited. If you can do absolutely nothing and just be in that space of love, you have impacted this world in ways you have no idea
mhm.
how powerful that is. And so that's something I like to remind myself of.
Yes, yeah, we all need that. So,
Yeah.
so I want to circle back around to the idea of standing for yourself, right? The power of standing for yourself. What have you noticed that's different about you? I mean, I know it's not just a singular point in time, like before this, I never stood up for myself, and now I always do. I mean, it's not quite that black and white, but if you could sort of condense it down into that sort of model, what were you like before, and what are you like now? What has changed for you?
So if we think about perhaps the journey is self-love, that when we're coming from a place of self-love, then we're vibrating with love. And then we're adding that to the field of love. So, but one of the challenges of experiencing self-love is if we're not standing up for ourselves, we're not really truly experiencing self-love. If we're not standing for who we are and we're not really confident and we're not really accepting of who we are and we're not really respecting and approving of ourselves, maybe is another way to say that, and coming in from that place of greater love, then we're not really able to stand up for ourselves in a loving, kind, caring way. Because standing up for yourself doesn't mean you go and tell somebody how horrible and awful they've been to you.
Mm.
That is not going
Right.
to help. You can say no, and I will just say in my situation, I just walked away and I just said, because I had tried to have the conversation, wasn't going to happen, tried to bring it back to a more, I don't know, courteous place. But it didn't work. It wasn't working. I was like, okay, I can't do that here. We can try to do that. And then sometimes we just have to walk away. And as a friend of mine says, walk a new way, walk into a new way of being. And I feel like it's a way of walking into greater self-love. And
Mm.
when we keep doing that, we keep walking into greater self-love, then we're changing everything for ourselves and for everything around us as well. And so, it's compassionate, it's kind, it's caring, it's courageous. It's like it takes courage to do that and come and keep coming back into that. And then, maybe you find yourself in another situation and you're like, oh, I need to love myself enough to stand up for myself and do it in the kindest, most caring, supportive way I can, or just walk away if that's not possible. And then, but still, it's increasing your ability to be in that place of self-love and self-acceptance and self-confidence and self-approval and, the self things, the healthy self.
I so appreciate that framing of it, that standing up for yourself is really about walking into greater self-love. And as I take that into my own body, that feels so much more accessible. Like I can imagine like projecting myself back in time before I had the skills and awarenesses that I have. Standing up for yourself sounds like this. That's a long way from where I am to that. But to go, let me walk towards more self-love. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I love that, Kaylin. I love that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
So I I I would love to dive into a long, juicy conversation that's astrologically based, but I know that that's not the focus of this summit. But I just want people to know that that is definitely your area of expertise, and you have been working with the celestial mysteries for a long, 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 long time. And so I'm very excited about the free gift that you have for everybody, which is how our natal charts help us understand our sensitivities. So say a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this was a class that was created some years ago that I did with Eric Roth, and we started because he's super high sensitive. I'm a super high sensitive, and we're like, we got to talk about this empathic, it's high sensitive, all that. So we decided, how do we navigate that? And the of course the challenges of anxiety and not feeling good enough and all the things that we can experience as a result of that. So how do we navigate all of that as well? And our charts can give us such good information and insight about that. So we take a deep dive. It's like, I think it's about maybe a little over an hour and a half, but you'll have access to it, and some practices that can help if you have certain kinds of ways of calming the body and that kind of thing. So that's also included with that talk, along with the invocations that we did. I've included them too. So if you want to use them, use them. If you want to adjust them, and I really adjusted the ways that I do them a little bit so it could work for a group, not just for me. So, so feel free to also tune into that and begin your own practice. You could write them out and say them every day. That one of the ways I memorized this was that I had them printed out and I said them every day. And then I started to memorize it. And now I can say them without having to read them. And also helping the rhyming about hurt and pain and guilt and shame and fear and blame, all that helps me to remember it as well.
Mhm.
So those are there on the free page. And again, one of the things that I learned from having done a lot of summits is that you don't have to give me your email. Just go to the page. If you want to get on my email list, there's a way to get on my email list on that page, but you just can go to the page and get the information, watch the class, get the invocations, and if you're not interested in the other parts of it, that's fine too.
I so appreciate your generosity with that. And I just want to clarify something for people who have no idea about astrology. When you're talking about charts, you're talking about specifically natal charts, which is the position of the planets when a person is born. And so I just want to make that clear
Oh,
for
yes, thank you for saying that. And yeah, so it's imprinted in you. And so these are the things you're here to learn about, to explore, to express, to help evolve. This is why you came. We could look at it as an intent. And if you have certain aspects or certain things on the chart, then you're here to really experience yourself as an empath, as a high sensitive person, as somebody who's in the really learning about the feeling realm. And then how to do that in ways that are healthy, so on. But everybody experiences, whether they're an empath or not, experiences cycles that will heighten their empathic experience.
Mhm.
And then they're like, wow, why am I feeling so much? It's kind of like when women are pregnant and they cry at every little thing. I was like, I remember watching commercials and I'd start crying. I'd be like, oh my gosh. But it's kind of like that. It's like you can go through certain cycles where it doesn't necessarily make any sense that
Mm.
you're experiencing so much emotion, but that's the intent. That's why those cycles are happening. When you understand that, you give yourself permission to go with that, to be with that, and then to get the benefits of that. So good. It's like really helps. And for like, as I shared, when I knew that I was in the cycle that I needed to stand up for myself, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, and once I got that and I was like, okay, that's what I need to do, then everything changed. It was like I was able to just accept it and move into it and do it.
Mm.
So it can be really helpful. It's like confirmation, like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Absolutely. So any final thoughts that you want to share about standing up for yourself?
Oh, uh, it's yeah, just just think of it as think of it as a practice of greater self-love. I think that's the best thing. And to stand, and again, standing up for yourself doesn't mean you have to be mean. When I was I was 22 or 3, this woman that I worked with, she just got really mad at me about something and she just came and blasted me. And she was feeling really good. She was like, standing up for myself, and walked away. I was like, I was devastated. Of course, I didn't go back to that job after that. I was like, I called and quit. I was like, I can't do that. So that does not help. She was not helping anything, but she was feeling really good about herself for having stood up for herself in that way.
Yeah,
That's not what we're talking about.
right.
We're
Yeah.
talking
Tearing other people down is not standing up.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah. So, but coming from a place of self-love and saying, okay, I'm not going to take that kind of behavior or abuse, or I'm not going to try to make it okay for that person. And if we can have a conversation about it without it, that wasn't a conversation. She just came and said all those things and walked away.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't, there wasn't any opportunity for anything. So how we engage those
Mm.
that are standing up for ourselves is important. And it's a practice. Some days will be better than others.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it feels important to say, my experience, especially working with a lot of people coming into their power, is after so many years of holding back or shoving it down, not saying anything, it's almost like the pendulum can swing in the other direction while they're figuring out how to stand up for themselves. And so it's almost like the extreme of not saying anything, being quiet, letting everybody just step all over them, to yelling and fist pounding and like, sort of exploding, because it's like they just don't have the experience of doing it. And it can also just be that backlash, right, of the pressure buildup of so many years of not saying anything. So as you are learning to walk into self-love and stand up for yourself, be kind to yourself as you are sorting out those skills.
And maybe go throw rocks in the desert or the forest,
Throw a
or
plate at the wall or something.
right, scream into a
Outside.
pillow, beat on some pillows, or get that anger out because it needs to come out. So it's important to feel it, but don't direct it to somebody if you have the ability to do that. And clearly, I know I have directed my anger at people at times and felt really bad about it later. So, but again, a practice, and then then you're like, ooh, I've got some anger I need to work on. When you recognize that, and then you can go do some other ways of releasing that anger that doesn't involve directing it towards somebody.
And keep walking towards self-love.
Keep walking towards self-love. Yes, love that.
Yeah. Kaylin, thank you so much.
My total pleasure. Thank you for having me.